Welcome, my fellow leaders and listeners. This is Succession, a podcast about the pursuit of success, the art of leadership transitions, and the legacies that shape our future. I'm Corey Grillo, and in each episode, we explore what it means to lead with impact, adapt through change, and create a lasting mark on the world of business. Whether you're navigating a career shift or planning your next big move, you're in the right place. Today, we're excited to bring you a conversation with Paul Jarrett, a Midwestern-born entrepreneur who has revolutionized the logistics and fulfillment industry. From his early days on the football field at Iowa State University to co-founding Bulu, Paul's journey has been anything but traditional. He's taken on giants like Disney and Clorox, delivering innovative solutions that allow brands to ship like major players. But what makes Paul stand out is his no BS approach to business and leadership. His story is full of resilience, from building a business out of his apartment to managing millions of shipments with his tricky ship fulfillment model. Join us as we explore his path to success, his take on leadership, and what it really means to create a legacy in the fast-paced world of e-commerce. Let's jump in. And Paul Jarrett, welcome to Succession. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
What's up, Corey? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm starting to believe the hype about you being an actual nice person in an executive role is true.
we have them all fooled.
Right. Well done, sir. Well, tell me, little background, because obviously I have a little background on you already, but do you mind sharing just a little bit about your journey so far and kind of the roots of it all?
Yeah. It's awesome to do this now, because after 12 years of starting a business and running it in a weird way feels like we're almost actually starting the journey. And so I can get to that. But the company went through a really interesting iteration recently. And so sorry if you can hear the warehouse behind me. We're really busy right now.
Well, This is your business. And Bulu, right? Bulu is your business.
In the middle of a 120,000 square foot warehouse.
Right. And if the listeners are just listening and they're not on a video on YouTube, then I see the logo behind you. I see the warehouse behind you. You are in it, my friend.
Oh yeah, we are in. Yeah, that's the way most entrepreneurs like it, though. So, I get asked this question a lot, and I would say that probably, I started at a young age. I grew up, I always feel bad when I say this, because I grew up dirt poor in a trailer park in Nebraska. And I also have to quickly add to that I grew up with two amazing parents that absolutely loved us and are still together. And they are, multimillionaires probably many times over. They probably don't like that part, but they did the hard work. They were the entrepreneurs.
Wow, they've really earned it.
They ended up buying the trailer park that we were in.
Whoa.
So we would see all these people getting evicted and trailers getting pulled out of the ground, and hauled off. And my dad figured out how to buy them for $1 and to renovate them. So, I grew up renovating trailers, but we just grew up.
Entrepreneurial blood there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was interesting too is I didn't know this until much, much later in life, but they had a couple of failed entrepreneurial endeavors. So failed clothing stores. Yeah. So, you don't know it, but it's kind of already in your DNA. And as I look through my family tree, there's just kind of generations of all sorts of bad entrepreneurial ideas. So my favorite was a beef farm in Colorado. I'm like, that feels like an episode of The Office. But so I grew up, and the way that our parents kind of taught us was just we had to work for what we wanted. So I remember going to the local flea markets and buying all of the things that little kids shouldn't have, like little ninja stars or little switchblade combs.
Okay.
And going and bringing that back. Yeah, going and bringing that back to school.
Right.
And selling those as a markup so I could go buy the Nike shoes. I could go buy the
No way. You were marking up at what age?
I was probably I was in third grade. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I just thought these flea market people that are by the trailer park are hustling us,
Right.
Two ninja stars for $10. So I might as well go sell each one of those for $10 to, so I think that those early experiences with just, bartering and going and asking for a cup of sugar and kind of that community that's a trailer park where also you got to watch your back a little bit.
Right.
I think it was the older that I get, the more and more I realize how much that formed me and how much, if you want something, you just have to go work for it. Period.
Right.
There's there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And sounds like you were a bit of survivalist and you were cunning, but there was also a humility line in there.
Absolutely. And I think it was because there was always that sense of our family was really tight. And you could just kind of tell, like, we weren't going to be there for long. And it took till I was 15 to get out of the trailer park. But, considering what my parents came from and what they did and us getting out, and we went straight from, a trailer park to a house with a sauna and a pool. And so it's like
that's
the Nebraska version
adjustment.
of Fresh Prince.
Throwback. Yes. Don't show your age here.
Yeah. And so, I always, then, I did the thing where you go to college. I actually played college athletics because, I was convinced the only way that I was going to actually get into college was, through athletics, which wasn't true, but just in my, young man mind, that was like, I need to be able to pay for it. I need to, not, because there was just
not wrong.
There was no question that my parents weren't going to pay for college because we grew up that way. If you want to go to college, you got to figure out how to go.
And football was your game.
Yeah. And my older brother and sister got academic scholarships, and he kind of said, listen, you got to either figure out something here, or you're going to be, it was always the threat was you're going to be digging ditches the rest of your life, which actually sometimes doesn't sound that bad.
And it's also lucrative in a lot of ways. Yeah.
That actually sounds, yard outdoors is a good business. So went through college, did the sports thing, went and actually got into advertising. I picked the first thing in college. When they give you the list of like aerospace engineers, the list A to Z of majors, right?
Pick one.
The first one that didn't have math is the one that I picked.
Right. Score.
It was literally like football was number one.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, what can I do to just like skate by and not do math?
Right. So I wonder what your CFO would say about that.
He would say that was probably a very wise man. Keep me out of the numbers as much as possible.
Right.
And so I did that, and I actually, again, that whole theme of like, you just got to go work for it.
Yeah.
I applied for advertising agency internships all around Nebraska. And I just remember I got shut down.
Ooh.
And it was, I was thinking, how hard could it be to get an advertising agency internship in college in Nebraska?
Right.
It turns out really hard because there's not a lot of ad agencies.
Right. Yeah. And what year was this, if you don't mind me asking?
This would probably be right around 2004.
Right. Because the landscape obviously has changed a lot in that area. So
totally.
Super hard.
And one of the reasons which led me to what I do now. But so I thought, okay, the kind of chip on my shoulder, poor kid, frustration hit a peak. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go work for the best of the best because, the local people in Nebraska don't see what a good marketer I am or whatever.
Clearly it's their fault.
Yeah. Clearly my portfolio.
They're missing something.
Yeah. They're the dumb. So I actually made a portfolio and I sent it to 300 ad agencies in New York City.
I'm sorry. 300.
300. Yeah. That's a common theme with me. If I want something, I kind of figure out, okay, maybe in 50 calls I'll get it. So double that to 100, but then I'm a little bit terrified. So I'm just going to call 200 people.
Okay. Now I'm seeing how you got in this industry. It's probably mass delivery.
It's probably, good point. It's probably the being terrible at math where I just go, just double it.
But that's a pretty serious execution.
Yeah. And I made, I remember my cell phone, it was like pretty early in the cell phone years yet. I mean, it wasn't like crazy early, but the iPhone hadn't come out yet.
Right.
And I just remember my cell phone kept getting shut off because I was calling out so much. And I had to keep calling the cell phone company and saying like, no, like I'm trying to get an internship in New York City.
Right.
And I've sent out these 300 packages.
Yeah. Did they think it was fraud or something?
Calling them. Yeah.
Like somebody stole your phone? No.
Yeah. I don't know the intricacies of the cell phone industry in 2004, but apparently, 300 calls out daily was,
somebody thinks you're like doing something you shouldn't be.
Yeah. And so, and the whole gist of it was, hey, I'm giving up my spring break. I'm going to go to New York City and I'm going to be there this week and I would love to meet you. Yeah. And you want to talk about competitive New York advertising agency internships?
Yeah.
those are just crazy. I mean, if I still, well, here, let me give you the numbers. I did, in all honesty, I did 350 of them. I do remember that. And then I ended up calling, I think I got to about 300. And then the other 50, the phone kept getting shut off. And then I went there and I actually stayed in my Ford Focus. One night or 2 nights, I stayed in like a $80 motel, hotel, roach infested place. Wow. And then I figured out I could stay in the airport. Right.
Oh, well, yeah, sure.
I figured out a way to stay there. So I stayed all week anywhere I could, which just sounds ridiculous now, that I just kind of like
hooked it. But pretty admirable.
This was one of those things of like, there's no iPhone, there's no whatever. So you're just, I mean, I was.
Yeah, you're resourceful. So resourceful was built in.
A lot of snacks. I remember this one lady in the airport figured out what I was doing, and she just gave me all the peanuts in the world from like literally eating peanuts, right? And good so people. I think out of those 350 packets, I ended up only getting about 12 meetings.
Wow.
And so I had 12 meetings.
Like the right conversion, sure.
Yeah. And you start to figure out the conversion rates. And out of those 12 meetings, a couple of them were canceled on me. A couple of them I just said, I'm going to wait in the lobby until I see you. And out of those 12, I got 2 offers.
Whoa.
So that was it.
Well, kudos. No, but that seems like, I mean, like, even to get offers, you're literally no experience going in, right?
Yeah. So here I am thinking, wow, that took 350 direct mail pieces.
Must have felt
right?
crazy. Yeah.
I had to go there. I got 12 of these. And then, I actually only got 2. And one of them was unpaid and one of them was a stipend. And
stipend, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and the one that was actually the stipend was the Lance Armstrong. Do you remember those yellow bracelets?
Yeah,
Livestrong?
Totally.
It was the launch of the Livestrong campaign.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like literally kind of the first person to get these bracelets.
Wow.
And lo and behold, those things became gold.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were, if you had these bracelets, you could sell them for like 40, 50, 80 bucks.
Yeah.
And so very quickly my trailer park kicked in. I got in touch with the Nike executives, right?
Wow.
And I was able to kind of learn like how the union worked, and I could give them a bracelet. And those bracelets were just, it was like a key to New York City. I could just go do anything I wanted. Yeah.
Epic.
And so did that. Had a pretty good advertising career, worked in New York City, worked in San Francisco. My wife and I always worked together, who's our co-founder now,
Amazing.
Stephanie.
Love
she was on the creative side. I was on the account side. And honestly, we just got tired of working 80 hours and we're a pretty good team. And we made a lot of people a lot of people a lot of money. And so the idea was always we were going to start our own ad agency. And so as we, though, did more and more, we just really didn't like that whole, there wasn't something physically to charge for. We were charging for creative hours.
Right.
I really didn't like that.
It's not scalable.
Exactly.
And for you, you're scale everything. You just didn't know it yet.
Yep. Yeah. And so, and I just always, as terrible as I am at math, I always love a scoreboard, right? It's always like something to shoot at, something to compete with.
Yeah.
And so we were in San Francisco, both doing the advertising agency thing, and we're running a half marathon. And at the end of it, we got a bunch of samples. And lo and behold, I was, here I am, this Nebraska boy, right? And I'm going, oh my gosh, they gave us samples of milk. I was like gallons of milk,
Wow. And living the big life.
Oh my gosh. They even gave us like free shoes. And I thought how insane it was that they were giving away all these high dollar products and nobody was asking us for an email. Nobody was asking any information from us.
Okay.
And it just kind of dawned on me, like, based on all my experience, like, man, if we could just get an email back for a sample, give us your email, you'll get a sample. Like we could start to learn what the ROI was on a sample.
Networking.
Yeah. Okay. And so from that birthed this idea of Bulu Box. So that was we raised capital. We raised $1.5 million.
What year is that about?
This was 2012.
Okay. And you and your wife.
Little advertising career. We did a lot of good things.
And you'd been partners for how long before then?
Stephanie and I.
Yeah.
We met, and let's see, 2 years she hated me. We
Right.
worked together in an ad
Fair.
agency.
Fair.
Yeah. And then she just said that, she said, I saw the way that you treated your mother and everything changed. She
Oh.
grew up in a house full of jocks, right?
Mm.
And so she was just inherently didn't like
Right. She
any
was holding
kind
the
of
bar
sports affiliated.
higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Good.
and then that moment that she saw kind of how I interacted with my mom and my family, she said, I didn't look at you as an advertising executive anymore.
Yeah.
I saw who you were.
Oh.
And 3 months later, I proposed to her, and 6 months later, we were engaged.
Oh
and
my
living.
gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
we've been together 16, 17 years.
It's amazing. It's like I want to do another podcast. I need a podcast about that right now, but I'm not going to, but that's amazing. I'm so happy for you both in navigating that challenge. I guess being co-founders and what that means. I mean, there's people doing it all the time that fail miserably, and you're doing that personally and professionally. So
when it's awesome, it's amazing. And when it's bad, it's bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I bet.
But also we both know that, and
Right.
we've had, years, I would say no longer than 2 years, but like we've had plenty of time where we've said, I'm going to bed, I'm mad at you, and I hope I'm not tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. You get up the next day,
and then you figure it out.
At the end of the day, you just know that the other person gives a shit.
Right.
Can I curse? Is that okay if I can curse?
Please do. I wouldn't know a corporate environment without it, so I appreciate it.
So we always just said, like, no matter what the thing is that we were doing, and I think it was the extra that I needed to start Bulu Box. Was that I know no matter what, she gives a shit and she loves me.
Well, you have a joint legacy. You have your individual legacies, and now you have a joint legacy that you're building together, which makes it even more, I don't know, complex.
Yeah, and now she owns the company.
Right.
So,
well, as she should.
Absolutely. So we started actually with Bulu Box, which was it was a simple idea.
Mm-hmm.
We took samples of products, again, take something of low value, right? Put them together, sold it for $10 a box. So we were one of the very first sample boxes.
Wow.
So that's how we got started. We raised capital. We raised another round of capital.
Wow.
We grew. And then kind of the pandemic hit and all hell broke loose. So
okay, hold on. Pause. We've been through a few transitions with you so far in this conversation. So, and raising capital is an entirely different beast. So I want to get back to that. But how in the world did you maintain your determination and resilience from, like, you're talking about sending out so many things, getting knocked down, like having to regroup, staying focused on what you wanted to accomplish? Like, what was that like for you, and what did you learn along the way?
I think it's so interesting that you brought this up, because I was thinking about this recently, because we bought the business 100% from our venture capitalists in October of 23, which is pretty recent.
Okay.
And we've grown from 8 to 75 clients since January, and we're growing pretty rapidly. And I was thinking about all of the people over 12 years since we launched Bulu Box till today, starting to go to events and starting to do speaking and podcasts, and I'm looking around and I'm like, where did everybody go? And there's a few people, entrepreneur friends, that really hit it big, right? And I'm talking, they sold out and made 60 million, 100 million,
right,
dollar amounts that you can't imagine. But for the most part, a lot of them got burned out, and I'm talking specifically about like raising capital and stuff like that.
That's brutal.
A lot of them got burnt out and just didn't make it, right? And I just, I was talking to a friend, and it is something that's, really been on my mind a lot lately, where I'm like, now that we're seeing success, we're making our own decisions. We own 100%. Like, to be very transparent, like, oh shit, we're making money and it's ours. Like, what do we do now?
What a difference.
But the difference, I think, has so much more to do with resilience than anything, and grit, and just
tenacity, right?
Yeah. And I think business, there's all these like hacks, and there's all these like, use ChatGPT for this, or
like shortcuts.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think business has so much more to do with longevity and experience. And the things I can do now with the Rolodex built over 12 years is just, you can't buy that. You can't hack your way to You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really find that, people don't realize that it's the downturns, it's the difficulties, it's the challenges, it's the things that you didn't want to happen that did, that actually give you that grittiness, that experience. It shapes you, because you can then learn from those things, and then you become unstoppable, because that stuff can never really impact you like it did that first time.
Exactly. And I think if you were to chalk up failures versus success, I mean, you're going to see, for probably any entrepreneur that's last 5-10 years or whatever, and this is definitely the case with us, our failures would probably be 10x more than our successes.
Well, look at the conversion rate, right? That you even said from the beginning, like that's pretty much still true. And I guess we can go into your fundraising part of your experience. Like, I'm sure that felt real.
Yeah. And that was one of those things too, where, I remember listening to a podcast when we were raising capital, and we got really fortunate the first time. The first time that we pitched, first time that we showed anybody anything.
That's nice.
We had 1.5 million ready, which was both a blessing and a curse. So
we didn't. I was just going to say, it could be very misleading. So for those of you listening that, want that, it also can be very misleading. Yeah.
I've told people I felt guilty for years that we worked about 40 to 60 days, where it's all a blur, right? On our business plan, on our idea, and all of that stuff. And I remember somebody wanted us to go to that Y Combinator. And I talked to an advisor, and he was like, dude, you're going so much faster than Y Combinator. I don't know what you and your wife are doing right now, but you're, and I'm like, I'm reading all of the things and doing all the things at hyperspeed.
Was scaling scary?
Yeah, it was. Well, we just didn't know any better, because here we are living in San Francisco, 500 square foot apartment, 2 dogs, we're getting samples from GNC, from all these places, right? And we're packing up boxes, and lo and behold, no customers, no nothing, barely a website, just collecting emails, like showing people what we're going to make this sample box.
Right.
And less than 60 days later, we have $1.5 million in the bank. And
then you're like, now what?
Oh, it was so fascinating watching the dynamics of, I saw that money and I was like, bet, let's go.
Right.
Here's the race. Like, I'm ready, like, to spend money like a drunken sailor on marketing and whatever. And total opposite impact on Stephanie, my co-founder. She's like, oh my God, this is other people's money. We have to be respectful.
Be meticulous. Yeah.
Well,
that makes you both a good balance then.
Made a really good balance, right? And so the irony is the thing that we're doing now in logistics is the problem that we had 12 years ago, but we didn't even know it was the problem. And so we started, and we're selling the subscription box, and just total ignorance. Complete ignorance is bliss, right? And that is one reason why I encourage entrepreneurs to start early, because the more you know, kind of the more that you realize
intimidating.
Like, how difficult it is, right? And so, we went, and I remember, here we are, 1.5 million in the bank. We rented out an office that didn't even have a bathroom, so we're using a
sweet office.
We didn't know how to do a lease. We didn't know how to do a lease, right?
Right.
We moved from San Francisco back to Nebraska to just find a warehouse and figure out how to ship these things. And it was one of those things where, day one, we're like, okay, like, what do we do? And then day two was like, I saw that, my friend that had agreed to help us went and bought QuickBooks for Dummies. And I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And then we were, the whole thing was, we just needed to get these samples out, and then we needed to, get them out. And so we just literally started emailing people saying, will you buy this thing? Will you try this thing? And spending that money, I remember we went from like 0 shipments to 80 shipments a month to a couple hundred. And then we started understanding customer acquisition costs, lifetime value.
Really looking at the numbers.
Yep. 5,000 a month. And then.
And where are you now?
What?
Where are you now?
We're shipping millions. Yeah. But we do it for other people. Yeah.
And
but we overnight, one time overnight, we figured out kind of marketing, this marketing was working.
Right.
And I just was like, let's put as much into it as possible. And I remember we sold 60,000 overnight.
Wow.
And that
how'd that feel?
the biggest, like, we thought for days that it was a glitch. Like we were
it's like, let's find this error.
yeah, and it was like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
run the numbers. Like, nope,
Right.
that's the order volume. And so,
Right.
yeah, we had
Okay.
to take
So
our entire
transition.
team.
I was just going to say team. Transition to how do you go operationally, internally? Like numbers are going up, 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 everything's happening. And this is where I see a lot of the pitfalls, right? When people are
Yes.
scaling, a lot of startup challenges, when people go from that number to the next big number, like
Yes.
the infrastructure starts to fray.
Yeah.
The things that they didn't know they needed or didn't want to have now become necessities. And, and sometimes the skill set isn't there naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting that I think some of the early mistakes that we made was, I think we were afraid to hire people that were smarter than we were, not consciously.
So
right?
It happens so much.
Yes. And we were hiring all of these young, brilliant, right out of college people.
Right.
And there was never a problem with work ethic or learning or whatever. But, I look back on it and I'm like, man, we were just all learning everything together at the same time.
Yeah.
And spending a lot of time and money learning to do the most basic things.
Right.
And, I would say we chugged along and we burned capital. We raised another round, and that raising the second round took another 300 phone calls.
And that's when it became a
that's
reality.
When it was And we were out of money. And I will forever remember, I was Googling how to shut down a business, actually.
Okay.
And one of our investors called us up and I said, look, we can't make payroll, because when you're not doing well and you burn all the money, everybody runs like the plague from
it. When you're in the red and you don't realize that's part of getting in the black, right?
Yep. And so, I was having these conversations and an investor said, what do you need? I said, we need like 75K just to like live for 3 more months before we can kind of figure out this next marketing thing. And so we were just buying time. We knew the model was broken. We knew whatever. And so I'll forever remember, I just had this sinking feeling that like we really didn't understand cash flow. We didn't understand finances. We are making all this money, we're making like 10 million in revenue, but there's like no money at the end of it. And you're just like, that doesn't make sense. There's gotta be
there's a glitch.
Something in here somewhere. And so we had a couple lucky breaks. And I remember we had, I just had went through all the hiring of good hardworking people, hiring kind of what I thought I should hire. And here we are now. We have our first child on the way.
Oh gosh.
We have almost no money in the bank. I think we have 3 more months of runway. I think we always had just like this, like we have 3 more months to live. Like that happened.
It's like 90-day, buffer.
Yeah. I went through that for years. And I was in the hospital and I had been interviewing at the request of some of our investors, which I look back now and they were basically trying to find a replacement CEO. So I was, and they would probably never admit that, but I was interviewing these people. I'm like, why are you sending me all these people? And I finally said, I don't think we understand cash flow and finance and logistics and what we're doing.
So you had to admit your vulnerability.
Absolutely. And that's tough because it's one thing to know how to like make revenue. It's a totally different thing to figure out, profit, right?
Yep.
And we knew the revenue part. We could, we took years to figure that out. But we ended up, I was in the hospital and I had let this guy look at our books, he interviewed and we didn't realize it at the time, but he was more or less interviewing us, right?
Yeah, good.
Because he had a good career.
Yeah, he has experience.
And so I was in the hospital and we're about to give birth to our child. And I just thought everything has been exhausted. We've hired everybody. We've tried everything that we're going to do. I'm going to take a risk and throw all of our money at this guy and just kind of roll the dice with him.
Wow.
And I'll forever remember, looking at him going like, man, I don't know what you're doing here. We got 3 months. And he's like, I think I can make something happen, and immediately he gets there and we're still kind of like, we just had a baby.
Right. Yeah. You got other things.
We're going to hand the keys over to this guy. Oof. And,
so you're having a baby and you're handing off a baby.
Totally. That was, and I think it was the exhaustion of making revenue and no profit.
Yeah.
And then all
Brutal.
of a sudden life is coming at you. And so it was a sheer like desperation move.
Yeah.
And immediately this guy's like, okay, first thing we need to do is change like payment terms with everybody. We're going to take money way faster and we're going to pay way slower. And
okay.
What
sounds
does that
good,
so,
right?
Yeah. And then he starts like looking at like, things through the government. There was so many things that we could do where there were free matching funds. There were all these things for startups that we just weren't taking advantage of. And he was also a lawyer, which was
very beneficial,
really educational to see how different people listen to a lawyer versus the
interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting.
And I hate to say it, but it was like the moment when I saw like, oh, we have the older gray-haired person in the room that's kind of validating like Paul and Stephanie know how to make money. I'm here to make sure that, we keep the money.
Right.
And it was that dynamic in the room and we went, whoa, we've been missing the financial part.
You didn't see that perspective.
For years in the business.
Yeah. But once you said that this is our vulnerability and we don't know, then it opens up this opportunity to welcome in all this new information, guidance, mentorship, like opportunity and perspective. But it takes that moment to say, I don't know. But it's so scary to say that when it's your company and you're like, everybody thinks I should know. And it's like, no, everybody wants you to succeed.
And up to that point, we had known,
right?
Like we knew how to do all the things and you just get to this breaking point. And I think that the two things that we did was we hired somebody with an absurd amount of experience and he really took us under our wing and I would say taught us how to operate a business. Yeah. And the second thing we did, we actually implemented this, it's called EOS or Entrepreneurial Operating System. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
There's a book called Direction, but it's literally like, basically 30 tools on here's how you hire people. Here's how you give reviews. And what we saw was we were so micromanaging everything. I mean, we had deep, huge processes.
Such a pitfall.
I mean, our annual reviews were like this thick, right? Like they were like an inch thick document that we sat down with everybody in the company and we moved from that to like one sheet of paper.
Right. I should say that's a good one to tell people though, because I don't think people realize they're micromanaging because they chalk it under, I care so much. And
that's exactly what we were doing.
And it turns into this ego beast. And that you need to know everything you need to do. You're the only one who could possibly do it the best. Then you end up doing 10 times the amount of work. It slows down production about that amount, and you're suffering, and it's not sustainable.
And I think that having an operating system to run by with EOS, and then having somebody with the experience, the thing that really changed with us as co-founders, Stephanie and I, we started to be able to, like, what we do is it's called letting go of the vine, or just letting go of things.
Exactly.
And we realized, like, hold on, we don't have to be perfect or professionals at everything. We need to actually get really good at recruiting more people. The guy's name was Hank Pfeiffer. If you're listening,
shout out Hank. Yeah.
We need to find more Hanks. How do we do that? Hey Hank, do you know
any more Hanks? Yeah.
And that's how we got our head of operations.
Wow.
And he came in and said, hey, you guys are outsourcing all this shipping and fulfilling. You're losing a ton of money.
Wow.
Let's get a warehouse and do it ourselves. And we're like, that sounds crazy.
And let me fast forward you now to getting away from the VC. And now, and when did this all happen? How is that feeling?
Yeah, it's still surreal. I still think I'm getting over it. I got a bit of joking, not joking, but PTSD from it. Right?
Yeah,
because
there was transition and a half.
It was, and I gotta be careful with my words here. I want to be respectful and legal.
Fair.
The pandemic hits, and as a business that was doing shipping and logistics and we basically built the business into. We were doing complicated subscription boxes for Disney, Clorox, GNC. Some of the biggest brands in the world were coming to us with the most complicated shipping. And what we thought was they wanted a subscription box or a sample box, or they wanted this kind of kits and stuff. they did want that, but really what they needed was the logistics. Like, how do you bundle up Mickey Mouse items, sell it out of the theme park as a subscription and charge people at home? And we were figuring out all of this stuff. And we had these open checkbooks from these big, huge global businesses to figure out really hard stuff. So the business transitioned from our own subscription box to we were building out subscription boxes for the biggest brands in the world.
Wow.
Pandemic hits, all 32 of those clients said, we're not going to pay you.
Oh.
There was no...
That's not an email you want to get.
Yeah, it was a good lesson in your contract with some of the biggest brands in the world. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, good luck enforcing it. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And when you're in a room and there's, 12 lawyers from, some big brands, and they say, like, sorry, we're not, like, there's, like, what do you do?
Nothing you're going to do. Oh,
yeah, so we lose all those clients, but we're still a very cash-heavy business because we needed to pay for the shipping, and we have all that stuff. And so I'll just say that Stephanie and I, as founders, saw the opportunity to offer shipping and logistics for B2B, D2C, social media. The way that we were shipping for the global brands. Now we had the software and the platform to be able to do that for everybody.
Right.
So the same way that we're doing subscription box out of theme parks for Disney, or we're selling social media for GNC, all these really complicated things, we were really handcuffed to big brands because of the money, right?
Right.
But in the pandemic came, I'll just say investors had one idea and we had another. And our idea was we wanted to keep going.
Right.
That's about as much as I can say on that front, right? And keep going meant we had no clients, but we had this platform and we wanted to offer it to people that were shipping, 20, 30 things a month.
Okay.
Because we knew it was a game changer for them. But it took us 2 years of negotiation with venture capitalists.
Oh, yeah.
Every week.
It sounds as bad as it sounds.
2
years of negotiating with venture capitalists. Wow.
Yeah. And what was interesting too is we lost control of the company in the pandemic because our numbers dwindled. And when the numbers dwindled, there were triggers in for, equity to change hands.
Right. But then it opened up an opportunity for negotiation.
Well, we made the opportunity happen. We'll say that.
Well, you made most of your opportunities. I'm learning that. Yeah.
You got to kind of do that. Yeah. And I always say it's interesting because, I was a kid that was always in the principal's office, and I figured out at a very early age, if I was just a pain in their ass, they wouldn't want me in detention even, right? Like, I was that kid, right? And so I kind of thought, I remember I called up my mom. I was like, man, they want to meet every week, until we negotiate this thing. And, I know they're in no hurry to do it. And, we're going to get beat up or whatever. And my mom busted out laughing. She said, they think it's a good idea for you to sit in the principal's office every week.
Mom,
sit in the board meetings every week. And I thought,
and now you have a strategy.
But no, it was one of those things where it was rough. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And in all honesty, knowing what I know now, if you were to tell me I would have to do that again, I would say no way.
Thank you.
No way.
Well, you learned. Lesson learned.
Got so far into it, and
now you're happy.
Made an offer, got the company, right? And then it was because we really didn't. We thought there was about a 1% chance that it would happen. Yeah.
Wow.
And it took some really awesome people on both sides of there, and I do love those people and our board for coming through. And I was definitely a bit of a pain in the ass. That's an understatement.
So if that was your succession, then how did you manage? If you don't mind me asking, and that's an interesting succession, right? And people don't think of it naturally like that, but that's what it is. And the internal, I know, and the internal dialogue, right, with your employees and undergoing that transition. I'm sure some people belonged with the VC and they weren't, whatever pieces would move wherever on the chessboard. But how was that communication? How was that handled?
It was literally impossible, like
Okay.
legally. I mean,
Yeah.
we weren't allowed to say a damn thing to
Right.
anybody,
That's the
and I'm
worst.
still really tight-lipped about it. So here we
Yeah,
are,
it's so uncomfortable.
we're not, we could say things like we are not legally the owners of the company.
Right.
We don't own the majority of the shares, right?
Right.
And we have to let go X amount of people.
Yeah. And you're just sitting there,
But a lot of
heartbreak.
people couldn't piece that
Well, no, it's not their
together.
area of expertise.
You are the CEO
Mm-hmm.
and you own the company for,
It's your fault.
10 years or like whatever.
Mhm.
However, one thing leads to another and you're not in control of the company. And it's like, you're the effing CEO, like what the hell?
And
And
they
you're
look
like,
to
hey, there's
you.
an executive board and, like I'm the CEO executing what the executive board wants.
Right.
That was a tough pill to swallow.
Yes.
Very tough.
You've seen
And
it.
you can't really say much to people
No.
because it's not going to help anybody.
Pandemonium, right?
Yeah. And what's interesting is I know there were so many relationships that were destroyed. It's disheartening. It's awful to think about. But yeah, thank you. But looking back on it now, and you just have to believe if you're doing the right thing for the most amount of people possible and you're being fiduciarily responsible, the thing is time will be on your side.
Well,
time will show the future. And that was the hard thing is, dragging it for 2 years and having to do really awful things.
Right.
But at the end of the day, there's going to be a point where you're on the Succession podcast where you can say, okay, here's the breadcrumbs of what happened. And the people that have really pieced it together are like, wow. And what's cool now is we have people coming back to the company.
That's great.
So
that's important to hear though. Not everybody knows, everybody who's listening and who's in those moments now really doesn't always know that there is, people will actually like me again. People want to work for me again. Like I'm not always going to be the evil one. Like that's a really hard thing, especially no matter what your past is or how you have experienced those challenges when you're in a room full of people that they just don't like you. Like that's not a good feeling. Like, and how you interpret that, you focused on the outcome, right? You stayed hopeful for what you knew to be true, what the belief in your own decisions. Like you had something to hold on to that seems really meaningful.
Exactly. And it was terrifying, going like, there's a 1% chance this is going to happen. But the great thing now is getting about it. Cause I was like pretty much not even allowed to do like social media and stuff like that. I mean, I was allowed, but I was so nervous of like legally
saying the wrong thing. Yeah, totally.
Whatever. I was like, let's just shut it down.
So you're a free bird.
But now it's cool because we have people coming back and they're able, like the other people are seeing the people that we're hiring and how we're growing. And they're like, wait, those people wouldn't go back unless, the good ones are coming back. The smart ones are like, awesome personalities. So,
resilience for your company too.
That's what it's all about.
Right. Oh, well, I mean, I want to ask more questions and I want to learn more, but obviously we don't have time to do that. Yeah. So where's the best place for people to find out more about you and talk to you a bit more?
Yeah, well, I'm not hard to find. I offer my email. It's just Paul@Bulu Group. If it's that interesting and you've made it this far, thank you. Yeah. But it's just Paul@BuluGroup.com. Get at me via email if you want. I have a way of answering those. Drop a little emoji in there so I know where you came from.
You're an emoji guy. That's good to know.
Yeah. But there's PaulJarrett.com. We're like starting to do keynotes and stuff like that. And then BuluGroup.com. So not hard to find.
And before you go, of course, I have to ask, what's next and how can I help?
Ooh. Okay. Well, we do have something pretty cool. So if you look at our company, we have global distribution for consumer foods down.
Okay.
And I will say this, that probably within a year or so, we have some pretty fun ideas for some consumer packaged goods foods, which is just, I'll say breakfast. And we're going to probably be launching some brands. So we're going to launch our own stuff. So right now we service a lot of logistics for other people, but we've got so good at food that we go, wow, the breakfast aisle is other than cereal, it's pretty boring.
Right.
And so now there's these glaring open gaps in the market, and we've just built so many relationships. Maybe I'll have to ask you to have me back on when we launch our consumer packaged goods brands.
Absolutely.
Or maybe just sample, the thing that we make and give me a little bit of feedback.
Now I know samples are where it's at. So you've already told me to take advantage of that. But yeah. And also it sounds like communication is going to be a lot different for you, right? As you're scaling, right? Yep. And then if you're branding.
Yeah. And honestly, I would just say, if there's anything you or anybody else could do, it'd just be like pat an entrepreneur on the back.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs get a lot of praise, but also like the ones that aren't in the best spot, like we gotta look out for those people.
That's true. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll build that community here, and I definitely appreciate you being a part of it. So
thank you so much for having me.
You reach out anytime. Happy to support you and Bulu.
Sounds good.
Thanks for being here, Paul.
Thank you, Corey.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
And before we go, a big thank you to all our listeners for tuning in today. We hope you found some valuable takeaways to help you with your own leadership journey. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready to dive deeper into your own succession strategy, or you want to be a guest on the show, reach out and email us at ask@CoreyGrillo.com. Remember, great legacies are built on smart strategies. Keep leading forward, my friends, and we'll talk soon. Bye.